All right, welcome everybody. This is a special show, and I am super excited for this. Disco, I feel like we're having like an all-night sleepover right now, and we get to share the stage with so many great people. I finally got to meet. It's such a cliche. Like this one, hey, Disco. This is one of my favorite people in the space. But this is truly, I'm just gonna say it. Everybody else, I love you all, but Scribe's my favorite. He's like a brother to me, and I love him. And he and I met, with Steven and Speed Racer and B-Ways and so many and Polly and Good Things and all these guys. And it was such a great reunion. But at the end of the day, what did we call it, Scribe? We called it our pivot foot, where you always have the
Yeah,
person to go back to. So Scribe and Steven, but these guys are my pivot foot. And I hope I didn't travel,
hey,
but God bless you, man. And welcome to the show.
thank you. Yeah, this is pretty cool. Seamless transition there. I caught the technical expertise there. You guys are doing a great job. I'm in the same window that Eric Voorhees was in about a week ago. So happy to be on this show.
In this screen, I don't know if you noticed, like I thought the time was 11:30 Central, and Eric was ready by like 11:04, and I just happened to be like eating eggs, walking by my computer, and it was like Eric is calling. I'm like combing my hair, brushing my teeth, getting my unibrow turning into two brows again, and I didn't have time to make the screen really big, so I told Disco this morning, I'm like, I'm making this screen super big because I want to make sure the guests, like, I don't want Disco and I to be like these towering giants and you're like, we've got you like in a little thimble cup in the middle, talking. Like, we want the guests to be, and even the news and the images and the logos just to be front and center, like the RSIC logo. I mean, look at that
Mm,
beautiful thing. Look at that.
That's awesome.
yeah, aesthetic is sweet. Very good.
Yeah. So we appreciate you joining us. This whole episode is just going to be on RSIC and Runecoin. Things, when did that start? 2 weeks ago, things just started cooking again.
Yeah, the devs came back alive on Twitter after much agreeing
Yeah.
on the in the private chats. There was a lot of complaining that there was no activity from the main handle or the dev handle, and so I think they heard that. They're in some of those chats that we're in. No special alpha. They just participate and observe. Uh, but yeah, they came back, and that kind of sparked some more interest in the entire rooms protocol. I would say to a degree, if you've got any sort of excitement coming into one token, it generates speculation on all of the others. I missed the initial pump on this one. Maybe I can catch a little pump on that one. As far as money and trading goes, but as far as just the community of RSIC itself, it was kind of like a rallying point. We've all just been in the trenches, just waiting and wondering. We still don't have rarity clarity. We don't know what season two is about, how much we're mining. We can't see any of that. The dashboard is not plugged into season two metrics yet. So, really, all that we have to cling on to is the devs' comic tweets and the Runecoin main bullish tweets. And we love both. I think that I've said it numerous times. The Runedev is a meme in and of itself. He has never broken character from the persona that he created. It's legendary, man. And the things that he does, behind a keyboard, aside from public tweets, is also legendary. So it's good to have them back and a little bit of a renaissance, I guess, in the Rune space lately.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Go ahead, Disco.
and I just think like I go back to the, when everyone first, got turned on to this and it dropped and everything. And it was like, there was this air of mystery, but there was also this like legit branding understanding of kind of rolling something out and getting people excited. And my props to Runedev on maintaining, this kind of air of kind of class in a way. It's always about supporting the entire ecosystem. It could have been easy to kind of, get into the mud with some stuff, but it's always kind of kept this stature, I guess, in terms of the communication and in terms of, not getting into infighting and really looking at the long goal and kind of reminding folks like, hey, this is a journey. We're playing a game. That's how it was always rolled out. We're not like going back on any kind of hyped up promises or anything. So I give a lot of respect to that, just kind of maintaining this integrity. And it's not like, hey, you were stepping different before. Like, no, it's just been how Runedev's been rolling from day one. So I totally respect that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think that project leaders are looked to as role models to a degree, and you want them to emit some sort of a character and have some sort of a level of distinguishability, be above reproach. That stuff goes a long, long way. You can have attitude, you can be snarky, you can be funny, and all that stuff is good to a limit. I think you don't want to cross a certain limit before you become oppositional to certain camps. And I think that they've gone above and beyond in that call, helping out, providing real services, airdropping tokens with this crazy runestone message that they crafted that a lot of people used. And then just consistently bringing the positivity, saying, hey, we want, rising tide lifts all boats. We want to contribute. We want to help everybody thrive. If we can succeed, we want them to succeed. It's not us versus them. It's us versus them, so that's great to see.
Yeah, it's almost like us versus nobody too. Obviously there's been two camps that form, but you went back to what Runedev represents to all of us. Like you said, he'll put head down, he'll disappear for a while, but when he comes back up, he always takes the high road. Now, obviously those of us who, love Runecoin, love RSIC, and love the thought of the possibilities of what it could be, we get excited, and sometimes there's little sparring matches with, especially, with Leonidas's crew and Runestone and Dog Go to the Moon and stuff. But even a lot of that has died down, because at the end of the day, for me, like, again, the reason that, Scribe and I found each other in that first weekend when we got these things dropped, and we're just like, what the hell's going on? What is this? Like, our minds just like exploded. And, the other collection, obviously I don't want to go down that road, but it was a reaction to RSIC, which in and itself is pretty cool too. It's like, for every reaction, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And, I guess I'd rather be the action than the reaction. So, I like that.
Yes, indeed.
So where do you want to start, Scribe? I don't want to go through the whole history. Some people to RSIC are probably newer and might not know the history. Hangry built that great website, right? Which is, I'll pull it up here. What is it? It's
8-21.com.
docs.8-21.com. Yeah. So here, I'm going to go to a 3-screen, and then I'm going to add you in. But this is a great place to get your, to get your basic overview. Yeah. And again, it's docs.8-21.com, and the 8 and the 21 are numbers. But it gives a full overview of the history of RSIC, how many there were, how it started, how it's all off inscription 126. I don't know if you had to summarize just quickly, Scribe, like, I mean, it's so hard to summarize everything that we went through from January through April to the halving, but what were the high points for you of R6 and what it did for your imagination and your thought of what's possible in this space?
Man, that is a loaded question. There's so many answers I could give to that. I mean, that 3-month period, and now we're 5-6 months, wherever we are, from January, 7 months to August, it feels like 2 years. I think I had a little more black in my beard before we started this year, because it was ups and downs. I think that some of the most exciting things, in my opinion, obviously the pooling token, and I can expand on that a little bit more, but the boost before that. Let's back up. Initially, the drop, we had already been seeing a couple of airdrops, maybe very, very small. Bitcoin machines, they were doing some airdrops, and there was a very small amount of airdrops happening in the ordinal space at all. And so, that first week when everybody was trying to figure out what is this thing that just showed up in my wallet, it's cool, it's generative art, it looks like, but that's all we really know. And then it was the creating of Twitter group chats to try to find out who knows what, who can determine what these rarity symbols equal. What is the supply of this symbol versus that symbol? How does that impact anything? Why is it lighting up orange? All the things we were learning that was fresh. And then going and having the documents already there for us to go and find the answers. We didn't have to trust anything that people were saying. We could just go back to the document that was inscribed ahead of all this and find out, oh, this means that. This is how the game is played. So that initial flow and wave of excitement at the outset, I think, is irreplaceable. It's hard to mimic or recreate something like that. That's just like we talked about before. I think it was catching lightning in a bottle to a degree. And then you had the boost token, where they had said, we saw it in the documents again in the inscription. We know that there's a boost coming, but what does that look like? What is it going to be? How's it going to work? And then when it was finally unveiled, it was very cool. It wasn't inexpensive. It was relatively expensive. Like I think you paid $300 or $400 to mint yours because the fees were so high at the time. And it's a large file. I think
Yeah,
it's
I didn't
95
wait.
point something kilobytes.
I did it. I did
Yeah,
it
I didn't wait
immediately
either.
that night and overpaid for it. But I may have, with exception to, I may have one of the earlier boost tokens. I don't know if, historically when we're all Jenny Wealth and super rich, like maybe that'll matter. But I'm like, can't wait, must boost now. Cause I was like, well, overnight, I can't lose that doubling RSIC boost overnight, which in hindsight, maybe I should have waited till morning for when it was like $42, but what are you going to do? You live, you learn.
You needed that extra 500 rooms. That's about what it equated to. But yeah, the excitement of that and seeing how it came into fruition, and okay, I've got to inscribe, and then again going back to the community rallying around these different questions that we all have and trying to seek the answers. Do I need to self-inscribe? How much is it going to cost? Why is the file size so big? Why does it look like that? It's very cool generative art. Again, it's another work of art in my opinion. So that was fun. And then I guess the third major point of excitement is the pooling in that arc of pre-rune meta before we got to the halving block and we actually had the thing. It was those things: the introduction, the increasing and boosting, and how you can interact with it. Inscribing, which a lot of people inscribed for the first time during that event, and also this thing caused a lot of fees. It generated a lot of fees with that spike that you bought into. Me as well. I just got a couple hours ahead of you, maybe. Um, Now they're relatively cheap, but the third main point of that is the pooling token, where the community homogenized around this idea of it's a lottery. There's 5 different winners. That's a huge amount of supply. What if we could share it? And it ties right into the Voltaire ethos, which is he's quoted in the white paper. So it was just for me that was climactic. You know what I mean? Like you have the inception of this idea based around this Voltaire, principle, and then the community identifying with that, finding ways to run in parallel with that, and then the team to support that idea, come along, provide technical expertise, and implement it. I mean, that was great. And for me, it's fun. And somebody asked me earlier, I'm arguing with a guy on the comments right now about a post. They've built nothing. And I go back to I replied, they built aesthetically pleasing art that is forever syncopated to the Bitcoin block hash value. That's number one. They built open edition generative art in the Boost token. Okay, fine. So they made a couple ordinal collections, right? They could use Chat GPT to do that. Somebody said, which is nonsensical. Who knows what a runestone message is, as opposed to the runestone ordinal itself. But they also, they wrote the runestone script, spearheaded the pre-rune meta, rallied all these different various communities around a single central point, and it's all for a game that they built. So it's an exciting thing, and I think that for me, if I want to invest in a project or if I get something for free and I'm deciding if I want to keep it or just dump it and take some profits, it comes down to potential and excitement. Does this thing get me excited, and does it have the potential to eat some of the market share in this space based off of the team's capabilities and the idea that they're presenting? And for me, it checks all those boxes.
Yeah, I'd like to break down what you just said. Disco, I think I have 261 questions in 4 subcategories. So why don't you go first, and then I want to kind of slow down and break a couple things out.
Yeah, it's kind of like we need like a little press your luck button or something to jump in because we have so many questions after Scribe spits. It's like, oh my God. But would you kind of, is it too simplistic to kind of say that what you were just talking about, from the drop to the boost to the pooling, and then, kind of the halvening, like that kind of maybe represents kind of season 1, right? Like, and we had like the halvening was when the lottery, everyone in the pool found out that they won. So it was like this whole collective thing, like, dude, we did it. Like everyone's in there, and it was like feel good vibes. And now we're kind of sitting there like, all right, want more? What's going on with season 2? Because we don't technically have, counts of what's being mined, if anything, right? Like the assumption is that the miners go on and that's been out there, but we can't like check, or to scan or whatever and see that necessarily. We're still waiting on the rarity side of it, right? We're still waiting on these other elements. So we're kind of sitting there now waiting for season 2 to kind of kick off in earnest, I would say. Is that kind of a way to capsulize it?
100%. That's why you're the host, man. You did a great job of summarizing all the words I just smudged together. Yeah. Season 1 encapsulated all of that. Yeah, he's got it down. I think season 1 encapsulated all of that. Like you said, the drop, the boost, the pooling, and then the halving. And now it's just a question mark. And the human heart is like an idol factory. As soon as I get this thing, I have a new thing that I want. So we got the first drop, the first rune that arrived in your wallet that you didn't actually go and mint or etch, and then mint was Runecoin. And so immediately, what's next? What can I do with this thing? And it's been months of nil, just no answers to that question. However, now, starting with 2 weeks ago, like Blue mentioned, we got a couple of tweets that kind of imply some different things. We see the giveaway with 7 top tier blue chip.
Well, before we get into that, Scribe, I just want to kind of put a bow on the historical stuff. Speed Racer has a good question that maybe you can answer. He asks, "What's the meta speculation on the symbols?" So, could you talk a little bit about the symbols and the rarity and what we think, at least?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure 100 of us think 1,000 different things. I've got my own particular theory that I've been forming in hardening a little bit for the last year, and it kind of ties into a conversation. I think I might have to put it in an article post because it's deep. I made a post weeks or months ago, about a potential decentralized indexer. And it got a little bit of circulation the other day because Good Things and English and Polly had a guy, H Wonder, on their show. He's like a super OG, and he asked some really good questions about the security of indexing being controlled and centralized with Casey and the org GitHub. And he's got dexes and all things he's built that's ready to go as soon as there's some sort of a decentralized option there. And for me, I'm starting to wonder how that might play in based off the tweets that the Runecoin account put out saying, there was a poll that they put out. I forget all of them. They said, what do you want Runecoin to be? A meme coin, an ecosystem rune, or a token for applications, or all of the above? And I think the majority responded all of the above. And so I started to think, what does it look like in each of those 3 cases? And I'm forming, my thoughts. I might put an article out later today if I've got time. Just to kind of summarize those different ideas. What could Runecoin look like, or how might it function in this category, that category, and that category? Yeah, there's the poll right there. And I think one of them, as far as the ecosystem rune or ecosystem rune for runes, it could potentially be an indexer. And some are speculating that maybe there's some sort of an AMM type of play, bringing in liquidity. Obviously, an indexer is not going to bring in liquidity. That's just going to decentralize how everything is updated and how this database is spread out and distributed. So that doesn't bring in liquidity. It'd be cool, and I think that there could be a play there. And I'm getting to the rarity symbol question as well. But I think that if you think about ecosystem token, or what does it say there? Utility token for apps. That is what I believe could potentially bring in liquidity and encapsulate an audience or captivate an audience. And what might that look like? You could probably just substitute Runecoin for Uniswap or any one of these other tokens if it's AMM. But being that we don't have covenants yet on OpCat, how can they build something like that? So there's a lot of questions still, and that's what I think keeps us here. Mystery is good for keeping people intrigued and following along. Don't give them everything. You got to dangle some sort of a carrot. Yeah. And the rarity symbol thing is one of their strongest carrots. It's a golden carrot. Everybody wants to know. I know some people that have spent a lot of Bitcoin on some super rare symbols. I don't hold anything super rare. I've got some that are decently rare. I would consider mid rares. And I want to know myself. But I think if you're talking about an indexer, or if you're talking about some sort of a DEX, not a DEX, some sort of a DEX, whatever term you want to substitute this application layer as, right. If Runecoin is going to be involved providing some sort of a yield, then the rarity symbol has to come into play, right? Not for Runecoin itself, but for the circuits. So they've got a three-pronged weapon here that can either be a problem or it can be a great benefit. You've got the circuits, you've got season 1, now you've got season 2 being mined by the circuits. And how do these 2 or 3 correlate in an ecosystem of liquidity? And there's a number of different ways that could happen. I'm still trying to like parse all of that out. But either way it goes, whatever yield is going to be generated that in that portion that is allocated to the circuits, in my opinion, it has to come down to rarity symbol. So if there's X amount of yield for this block, based off all of the transactions in that block, and that block aligns with this hash value, which is aligned to this rarity symbol. There's 24 rarity symbols. The hash value of a block is hex 16, is base 16. So it's 16 hexadecimal characters, right? 0 through 9 and A through F. One of those characters is tied to your rarity symbol. Some of them overlap. There's 16 hexadecimals, but there's 24 symbols. So some of them overlap. But anytime you have a block hash value that ends with this character and it aligns to that symbol, I can see the rewards going to that rarity symbol. Now, it's cool if you've got a couple of the rares because you don't have to share that with as many people. If you've got a common RSIC, that's probably going to be shared with 8,000 people or 4,000 people or 2,000, and it halves from there effectively. But if they generated any sort of sizable fees that are meaningful, and you have a rare symbol that's going to not have to share that with numerous people, that's a win.
Yeah, absolutely. The market bank makes a good point. I posted it up here a couple of times because it doesn't stay, but it says, I feel regarding symbols, rarity could act as a revenue share multiplier. My theory, it's my theory, but I do have reasons for believing this, Whale. So he's telling us he has insider info, but this is probably the most common thought of it. The interesting phrase he used there, which would be awesome, SEC and regulation bullshit aside, if this could be decentralized enough, like rev share would be absolutely awesome if this does have some sort of a DEX or an index or some utility to serve as a base token for that.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, I think Good Things show yesterday, Everything Ordinal show yesterday or the day before spoke to that very thing. Just the problem of centralization with the ORD indexers. And what is that? What could it look like to decentralize an ordinal indexer? Because runes are in the ORD protocol. So runes are being indexed by ORD indexers. What is that? That's a Bitcoin node. How many of us set up umbrals ahead of the mint, thinking that we had to have ORD installed, our own client, so that we could etch and mint on halving block day? A lot of us, a huge amount of the OMB community. So all of these nodes essentially had to add the Bitcoin in, or the runes had to add the ordinal index, right?
Right.
Now, if you can somehow transfer that into the programmatic language of the script that is providing that RSIC or generating that RSIC circuit, because they appear to be updatable, at least on the back end. I mean, I'm trying to form two different thoughts. Let me break it down. Either A, they're going to have all of this stuff built in the background with APIs and connected to the Bitcoin nodes somehow, but that's still a central point of failure. Or B, they're going to actually encode all of this somehow onto the blockchain on Bitcoin layer 1. Because they said layer 1, they're not working. There is no second layer, right? That's the new quotable. There is no second layer. It's Bitcoin. That's what we want. There's a lot of people building L2s. There's a lot of people that can build and adapt fractal. We have all this stuff popping up. In my opinion, a lot of it is just a distraction from what layer 1 is supposed to do. And I think that if they build this stuff on layer 1, and they can take all of that and not have to have a ton of centrally controlled APIs, but can encode all of that into the ordinals themselves, into covenants with Opcat and a bunch of different things. In my opinion, it becomes decentralized, and then that's huge. I mean, that's major. There's nothing like that in the world on Bitcoin. So yeah, obviously the revenue share, the market share of capturing that size this early is massive. And then you can start to see what their claim was leading to when they said that this could become the number 2 cryptocurrency. I mean, that was crazy. To say that, at first when I read it, I was like, oh, they're trolling. And I kept reading, and it had more of a serious note, a serious mood to it, like they weren't trolling. And I was like, well, how on earth could that possibly be the case? that's the most bold statement you can make in crypto, is that this thing I'm building can become number two behind Bitcoin. And because it's on layer one Bitcoin, there is a chance potentially.
So let's go there. I wanted to wrap up like the pre-runes and the excitement there, and then get to this, but this is just too exciting. So how do you think that happens?
Which part specifically?
The second part, like how you get it done.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that to become the number two cryptocurrency, you have to drive immense intrigue, capture tons of liquidity from all of these other blockchains. Casey made the point about his goal with all of this is to leech all of these transactions, and he wants Bitcoin on the other side of that trade, right? So there's always this speculation about Casey being involved with RSIC. Whether he is or he isn't, the case can be made that the two share similar sentiments, right? Bitcoin layer one is their focus. That's what they want to build and focus on. And they are trying to expand the Rune's ecosystem by lifting all boats. So if they can do that, if they can capture that, begin to leech and suck away some of this market share from Solana, Ethereum, and all of the others that exist, then that pie is going to grow. It's going to attract more. People will begin to come over. And you saw the post from the Runecoin account asking for devs that are familiar with Rust to come over, because you can program in Rust. That's not a super tough language. So if we start to see that stuff begin to happen, we have the ability to use runes expressively, programmatically, add all of this stuff, not necessarily with smart contracts, but with covenants, Opcat, and Merkle tree. Recursive covenants is a thing. If you start looking at Opcat and what that has as far as capabilities go, it's pretty wild. Now, there's still that dividing factor. Is this going to be pre-Opcat? Is it dependent on Opcat, or could it be post-Opcat? My hope is that, and my belief is that Opcat will only improve and enhance these things, but a lot of the stuff that the Runecoin team is working on is independent of Opcat. It can be enhanced and improved and made more efficient, but at least some of the stuff. I mean, obviously the meme coin that doesn't require Opcat. An ecosystem token might require Opcat for covenants, recursive covenants. A utility token might not, but it might have central points of failure as far as them controlling the code base and then linking it up to the network. But yeah, in my opinion, like I want to make sure that I make a disclaimer that the NFA, like $300 billion for an ETH market cap, for any other token to do that is astronomical. It's something that you can't even entertain in your mind, really responsibly, I think. But if you were to do so, put a very long time horizon on that, 3-4 years of adoption and building up, and a lot of stuff coming to the network, devs migrating from Solana, from Ethereum. That takes time. Then they have the design phase, then they have the implementation phase. So they could build stuff, and we could start to see some of this capital flow over here, and that market cap really grow, and Runes become a major world stage player within the top 10, top 20 consistently. And if that's the case, which Rune? Because they all have their own individual market cap. So the overall market cap could become huge, but could Runecoin itself become a 10, 20, 30, $100 billion market cap? It's yet to be seen. We have to just wait and watch, adjust your risk appetite. If it were to happen, it's going to take some time. But I think that because it is all built upon layer one Bitcoin, that fact alone it gives it a nudge over anything else. Nothing else has ever been able to make that claim because it's a new blockchain. I'm just creating some new digital ledger that has my logo and my proof system, whether it's proof of work or this or that, but it's not Bitcoin. This is why Runecoin is different, because when they say a bold statement like that, it's backed by the Bitcoin network and all that it offers.
Why is layer one so important? Like we've seen Disco and I just on the Central Lens talked about Ethereum and layer twos, how they're kind of stealing, I don't want to say stealing, but it almost feels like the Ethereum layer one is getting screwed. And maybe that's just because Bitcoin and ordinals and Rune exists anyway, and we have a vibrant ecosystem here. So a lot of people came over, and then the newer people are going to ETH. It's what's cheaper, much cheaper transactions. So this isn't a story about ETH, but how how does something stay in an L1 and not kind of clog the network? Like Rune, if this is pulled off what we think it may be, it is fully L1, as you said, correct?
That's what they're alluding to. I mean, we have no definitives, but they've implied as much.
Because there's so many L2s coming out on Bitcoin. Someone said upwards of 100 to 200. So basically, everybody is going to try. We know Bitcoin will always be that base layer money, but to have it, for me, seeing the mistakes that maybe Ethereum made with these L2s all expanding too quickly and kind of having a mind and a profit motive that doesn't necessarily always roll down to ETH with Bitcoin if it's on layer 1. I mean, obviously that's way better because there's nowhere to roll. It's just within the transactions. I don't like the thought of an L2. I know there's a lot of fractal, there's a lot of stuff coming out that kind of is highlighting that, but I guess can you explain the tech or go into any detail why L1 is so important and how that may work? Is it just the runes that we know and love already in a simple UTXO?
Well, I think like big picture, everything after Bitcoin is a derivative. Ethereum, Vitalik created Ethereum because he wanted to have, programmability and faster block times. Solana wanted to do the same for Ethereum. We want to be Ethereum, but we want to have this. And then every other chain that has come since 2009 has been the same thing. We want to do that, but like this. They're all trying to do that, what Bitcoin does. And so that's why layer 1 is so important. It's the most decentralized network in the world. There's no founder. He's walked. It's got the most liquidity. It's got global reach. It's accepted as payment, monetary value. It's got all of that. Nation states are adopting it. So everything that we know and believe about Bitcoin, that's why layer 1. Because everything else is not that. Ethereum, in my opinion, is a derivative. It's merits. It's cool. I've used it. It does stuff that Bitcoin can't do. Solana does things that Ethereum can't do. And all the other chains do something or
right.
Pretend to do something that the others can't. But ultimately, it comes down to Bitcoin being Bitcoin. It's all about Bitcoin. Everything else is a side dish. Your main entree is Bitcoin. So if you can get some sort of expressivity, programmability on Bitcoin, which has never been possible before ordinal theory came out, introduced by Casey Rodamore, then you can start to, pull some of that liquidity and those devs and those users back over to the mothership, to the mother chain, Queen Bee, where they belong. Everything else is a test net. I'm with you. I don't really like L2s and side chains to a degree. Depends on how they're implemented. There's a lot that can go wrong. I don't like bridging. I won't bridge my Bitcoin. I don't care what you promise. If Fractal requires me to send Bitcoin into some bridge, good luck with it. I'm not sending mine. That'll remain in my custody. And if Runecoin can somehow, that's a hard pass. But if Runecoin or any other dev team in the world can begin to bring some of this programmability to L1 Bitcoin using runes, which are just tied to the UTXO set, then that has the most upside and potential of anything in the crypto space, in my opinion, hands down, full stop. This is Bitcoin. Again, circle back to everything that we just talked about. This is number one. It always has been. It doesn't matter what you're degening on daily, where you've made your most amount of profits. None of that matters. What matters is how decentralized is the network, how secure is the network. That's number one and number two. And then if it's really good in those, it might be a little bit slower. And that's Bitcoin's problem. It's a little bit slower, and we don't have the programmability. But with Ordinal being introduced early last year, now we can begin to add messages and data into the opcode, the output, and store data.
Yeah,
What's
the 10-minute blocks.
Data.
Sorry to interrupt you. The 10-minute blocks is
Sure.
10 average, right? Is an interesting conundrum. Like that to me. Like I want to stay, especially after seeing what happened on ETH, and even before those chains, I always just stayed on the main chain because if I have art, I want it on chain. And I want it on the main chain. So you're right. That would be true with ordinals. Obviously everything's on chain and inscribed on a SAT, and with runes too. It's all on the main chain. I guess the only argument one could make for things that need real time settling, like I think that's why Solana meme coins did so well, that real time, like boom, you did it, boom, the transaction's done. With Bitcoin, I see it as a feature, not a bug, but as newer people coming in, that hiccup, I think that's not the only reason. Obviously buying runes in big buckets instead of just being able to buy exactly the amount you want. And, obviously people now are having huge buckets of runes on the floor that, for $9,000 that people aren't going to buy. So you can manipulate the floor way more when it's not super liquid. It's just interesting that I still, and maybe I'm biased because I've been Bitcoin a while, and I know you guys are probably biased, but I want to stay where the L1 is. I'd rather have immutability and self-sovereignty over speed, but there are that would be the L2 use case, which would be speed, right?
Yeah, the benefits of an L2 is twofold. You get a little bit faster and maybe a little bit cheaper.
Right.
And so that's what it boils down to. Now, what if you could use somehow runes within that? If you've got a node, if you've got a Bitcoin node that's actively listening to new block events, then even if a block has not confirmed, it can see which transactions are being approved or being mined. That could be live updates, right? It's just UTXOs. A node is just reading UTXOs. Okay, it says that this wallet owns that UTXO. And in the past, it was that UTXO contains this amount of sats. But now it's that wallet or that address contains this amount of sats and this amount of runes in that UTXO. So as far as runes go in the application layer, to be able to update it and find out, where are these rune tokens moving to and when, there's the potential for it to happen in between blocks. I think there's no finality until the block occurs. And so that it's super, super complicated. And I would prefer, like you say, just to wait for the 10-minute block, even if there's a 58-minute block or a 2-hour block, which happens from time to time. If a project or a team or an ecosystem is able to, I guess, proceed as though the block is going to be confirmed and those transactions that are in the mempool that are being mined are going to be confirmed at some point, then you can kind of speed that up a little bit. But that introduces another layer that's effectively an L2. You go to Coinbase, that's an L2. All trading, H Wonder the other day made a very good point that every Bitcoin trade that happens is happening on an L2. Unless you're just sending direct. If I send you some sats and you send me some sats, that's a trade, but we're not trading anything but our sats. Everything else has to go through a layer 2. So there has to be some sort of a trust assumption play. The question is to what degree? The more we can put this stuff on chain and reduce the amount of trust that we have to provide to some team or some dev or some GitHub, the better. But there's going to be some layer regardless, I think, until we get to a dystopian future where everything is just completely on chain, which who knows? If we can get there and begin to encode all of this stuff on Bitcoin L1, speed up the block times, maybe speed up the block limit or increase the block limit, then there's a lot of stuff you can do. I'm not making a case to do that. I don't want people in my DMs saying, "Oh, you don't like the 4 megs."
Turncoat.
No, I'm not. No, I don't want to change Bitcoin. I just want to use what's there or what has been there in the case of Opcat to enhance it and make it more efficient. And I think that's where everybody wins, and that's what Runecoin and RSIC is pursuing, in my opinion, and that's why I'm so bullish on them, because they're aligned with that same thesis that Bitcoin is king, and if you can do anything on Bitcoin, then it supersedes anything you can do anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely, and Runecoin's posts have been just absolutely legendary. on that. Like, I love this one. Digital scarcity, Runecoin supply can never increase. It's fixed, no inflation, just like Bitcoin, obviously. ETH and Sol are inflationary. Disco and I just checked this morning because ETH, if it's a busy chain, can be deflationary, but right now it's small inflation, but it is actually going up because there's not enough transactions to burn enough ETH to keep it deflationary. So, they make good points, and I like the stand that the Runecoin team is taking. Like, everything, this whole ecosystem that's been created over on ETH and Solana. Bitcoin's different, obviously. It's UTXO and not account based, but everything should be over here because this is the mother chain. This is the immutable chain, and this is where everything belongs. So whether you call it L2, L1, people are going to build stuff. A lot of things are going to go to zero, but hopefully not this one. Do you think, with the pre-runes era, I'll finally get the transition I want to this because we were so excited we got like all to the answers, but there's a lot of basic questions that I've been thinking about, and I kind of have, like, the pre-runes era. I mean, you had your Rune X, and you had like there was a lot of stuff out there, some interesting stuff and some garbage. But the Rune X, like, hey, send this wallet your Bitcoin, and we'll, the second RSIC dropped, we're like, see your Rune X, like, it felt like a big scam to me. But what would you say to this comment? Like, I think it brought us the pre-runes era galvanized. It brought so many of us together, and there's, sometimes we had to just hold the faith while Runedev is developing, but it brought us together. And you've got one of the hardest things, and with Leonidas and Runestone, they did it too. Like, they've got a huge following. They were done in completely different ways, but there is a core group of users who are bullish, who are excited about it, for both, obviously, hopefully to become rich, but for the technology and for the social aspect of it too. How important of a role do you think that plays?
Well, I think that speaks to the third option in that poll that they put forth is, could Runecoin just be a meme token? And again, back to formulating some of my thoughts that I'll maybe share later. I think that a good meme really just boils down to the lore, right? Pepe, Doge, none of that stuff is necessarily popular because it's super funny or very memeable. It's because it became memeable because the lore was good and people latched on to the lore. Doge with Billy M2K, they created it, and Shiba, they came after that. It's riding off the coattails of Doge. And so it all comes down to lore, in my opinion, and within rooms and within Bitcoin ordinals in and of itself, RSIC has some of the best lore that there is. I mean, there are many others that have good lore. Shroom Toshi has good lore. It's early stuff, but he's not very active, and it's a very small collection, right? So I think they have the collection size on their side. You've got 21,000 circuits. You need at least a 10K collection to have a good amount of reach on Twitter, and they've doubled that, but it's still a moderate number in regards to what they're building. So they've got numbers on their side, and then additionally, the historicity of having 126, inscription number 126, you can't replicate that. You can't mimic that. You can maybe go out and buy that. Maybe they did, but you acquired it. You know what I'm saying? Either you etched it or inscribed it, or you acquired it, and that was done early. You can look at the chain and see when they might have moved wallets. So they've proven that they've been here from the start. They've got the numbers in the reach. And then they've got Runedev himself, who is a meme in and of himself. There's humor. The whole rollout, they've got the 8-ball. I think that's a great emoji that's very memeable. The whole 8-ball thing being rune number 8, rune number 21. Today is Bitcoin Infinity Day. They have rune number 8, rune 21. That ties right into Bitcoin Infinity Day. I think they dropped.
Do you think
the airdrop
that was a
21st.
coincidence, or do you think that was on purpose? Because that's pretty cool. We were talking about Infinity Day on the Decentral Lens, and the 8 of August stands for, you put it sideways, it stands for infinity, and 21's for the 21 million. You put every single asset in the world into 21 million as the denominator, and it just encompasses everything and eats the world. So Dave here is saying, who, by the way, if you're not following Dave, and you aren't RSIC, do follow him. Scribe, you know his handle because it just has his PFP. But what's his PFP? Just or his I'm sorry, what's his Twitter handle? Just so we can make sure everyone follows him.
I think it's your boy. I think it's your boy Dave. I'd have to look it up. He's in the comments there. I don't know if the comments are live on Twitter.
Yeah,
he's got some banger posts recently. Okay.
Yeah, I just posted him up.
He's got some banger posts recently.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, here we go. I knew it was something strange. It's Yaboy DVH. Oh, ya boy DVH. I'm sorry. Total boomer. Like, yeah, boy.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah. So, here we go. Thank you. Saw you just post it. Here, let's go to this one. This is a much better place to post it. So Dave has some great long thread takes, and hopefully we'll get to some of these too, Scribe, because I know he's got an influential pen and quill in this space for sure. So sorry, we're now that we saw Dave, I had to put him on the screen. Where were we?
Yeah, we were just talking about the meme ability of Runecoin in and of itself. The 8-ball emoji like we see right there, and everything else I just mentioned, the humor, the provenance, the contribution, airdropping number one. They said that they were the first rune. They weren't necessarily edge first, but they were the first one to show up in your wallet that you didn't mint. First one that was being actively traded, topping the charts. So they pulled off a lot. So they have the lore, right? So it's just up to the community that exists that's still here. Call them bag holders if you want. It's always up to bag holders to promote what they're passionate about. If I have a stake in a thing and I'm passionate about it, excited about it, I want to share that thing. Maybe because of financial gain, but maybe just because I'm excited about it. And I think that is kind of mixed a lot. Like I don't shield tokens. I've never shielded my own projects. I'm not a shill, but I promote things that I'm excited about and passionate about and that rile me up. And I think that RSIC does an incredible job because of everything I just mentioned. They have all the ingredients of this gumbo. We're just sitting at the kitchen table waiting to get our bowl of gumbo, right? But they've got all the ingredients. You can smell it. It's simmering. They got the bay leaves in. They got the humor. They add all this stuff into this big pot. And we're just sitting there with our fork and knife like, give it to me. I want to eat. I need to eat. And that's what, in my opinion, creates a good meme. When we do get to feast, some might not like the meal. Most people are going to be thankful that they get a warm meal. You know what I'm saying? And then it's up to them to continue to perpetuate that. And that's what we saw happen with Doge and Shiba and now Mog. I mean, how memeable is Mog? It's a cat with some sunglasses, if I'm not mistaken. But look at the community that's rallied around it because of the lore, the emojis, and the way that they can promote it online. So having the 8-ball, having the generative art, crossword puzzle, all that kind of stuff, it just goes a long way to help them to become a meme coin. Even if everything else flopped 2, 3, 5 years from now, it could still become the number one meme coin because of everything I just said and not deliver a thing. And maybe that's part of what they were alluding to in their tweet that said that Runecoin does not need us to thrive or to succeed. Others can come and build upon it, can adapt to what we've done so far. It's just got too much potential.
Yeah, and that goes back to that goes back a little bit just to the genesis, right? Like I think the strength of the community is kind of in the diversity of the different communities that got dropped to begin with. So it was kind of a communal, come together vibe from the jump. So having that not just be in and of one, one kind of cycle or cylinder, right? It was kind of across, all these different lines. And I think seeing that kind of get reignited just with, a couple of, hey, I'm here, tweets. And then you just see this, a lot of people are hungry. They want the gumbo. They're ready. It's wafting through the room. So they're all in line, ready to eat. So yeah, I think you're dead on with that.
I love metaphors.
And awesome. And maybe one more metaphor here is Runecoin is kind of like NATO, like the US and NATO. They've broken down all these borders between all these small collections, right? They still have an enemy that propped itself up to be an enemy, if you want to believe that. But they've gathered a coalition, all of these warring nations, and all of the small European nations that were fighting with each other, and now they're all under this one umbrella. And that's kind of like what Runecoin has done. And there are other projects that are capable of such. I think Billy has done a similar job. Again, it's something that everybody from every collection or art style can rally around and enjoy. And Runecoin is that. They did it first. Billy's different. It's just a token. It's a great meme. Runecoin, they were first, and it's more than just a token. It's a collection. It's a meta protocol and all of that. So I'm here for it, man. I'm excited. And like I was mentioning earlier, a lot of people, somebody was in the comments, talking about people promote it for free because they're bag holders and they want to find some extra liquidity. That is not always the case. Maybe you're jaded and you've experienced that. You've been dumped on by somebody who did that and then they just walked. But that's not always the case. There's a good amount of people here that have money. If they can make more, that's great. But that's not what drives them a lot of the time. Like I would love to make some profits. I made a little bit of profit in this space, and I would love to continue to do so. But I also want to just collect stuff that I like, whether that's art or runes that are memes or potential utility and application layer plays. I want to have a stake in that, and I'll promote it because I believe in it, not just because I want to find some dummy that's going to buy my bags later. I think the dummies that are going to buy our bags later are not coming for a couple of years. So I'm not talking to any of them. They're not on crypto Twitter. They're still on TikTok and Instagram and everything else, or they're just not on crypto
mega
Twitter.
alpha over on TikTok and Instagram. Like I don't even want Disco went over there once. I don't even want to know the crypto cesspool that Instagram must be. It must be all, there's enough pump and dump on X. Like Instagram's gotta be the worst clickbait of all time.
Yeah. If you want to learn how to read technical analysis and how to day trade, go to Instagram. You'll find an expert, a guru who can sell you an ebook real quick.
A legend. Yeah. It's interesting because I think one of the things that it's a theme that I keep thinking about, which is just it seems like it could just be more Bitcoin ethos and Bitcoin centric, and more that's becoming like this hold mentality and to hodl and keep going like that. And I think that you've seen that represented with, RSIC up to this point, like people have they're accepting that it didn't, I think right after the halving, people thought, oh, wait, I'm going to go buy my boat and do all that. But I think people stuck with it. And I think that that's a testament to kind of a mentality that may not be evident or as apparent in other chains. So I think it really does kind of line up to this next generation of people really coming into an understanding. Yeah, it might take a little bit longer for the blocks. It may do this or that, but here's your benefit. And I think that we kind of have a big community of people that understand the strong ingredients to this, to what we're building and being a part of it. And I think that's representative of people that are going to stick into this culture and kind of lead the way forward.
100%. And I think to your point, it boils down to the two epochs of RSIC, right? You have season 1 and season 2. They did and delivered on everything that they said that they would for season 1. They said, this is a game. This is how you play it. This is what we're going to do. And then they did it. And then now everybody is hung up on, okay, but what's next? What are you doing next? Do I keep it? Do I sell it? Do I just dump it? Is the game over? And if it's not, then what do I have to hope on to, or to hold on to and to hope in? And if you're convicted, if you have the conviction to hold on to it and just wait and be patient, and you've managed your risk well, then just wait, just ride it out. It's a terrible market. Even if they had the dopest project that anybody had ever seen, launching it right now, a couple of months before the election, when there's all this chaos in the world, on the world stage, on the grand world stage, that is affecting the crypto market at large, and then thereby putting pressure on this little sub microcosm of this larger market, it's just not a good time to launch, anything of importance or significance.
So if you think about, season 2 starting after the halving, like nobody, or maybe I'm wrong, but nobody really knows when they started building for the rollout of season 1. Like we don't know how far back that work started happening.
Right.
So it's really hard to gauge like, oh, you should be doing this. We don't know how much it took to get to the point of launching this in whatever it was, January, so it's fascinating to really think about how much they were cooking before they even, kind of just dropped this on everybody. So you just got to have patience to give it time, I guess is my net.
Yeah.
Right.
The market
Yeah,
bank. I love these comments that are getting posted. Look at like, oh, we can read that. Like, guys, try and keep it to like one sentence, and then we'll extrapolate from there. But Market Bank has a great point. He's basically saying he's speculating, but they're probably building L1 contracts, which is dependent on OP-CAT. Like that feels, and that OP-CAT will eventually be a soft fork on Bitcoin. Now it seems like the Luke Dash Juniors of the world would rather commit seppuku than see that happen. But it seems like the tide is turning. That was a part of Satoshi's original plan. He did take it out, I believe, because he did not want to make it too complicated at first. He wanted to keep it simple. And then so he took it out kind of near the end before Bitcoin went live, correct? So, Scribe, do you think OP-CAT is probably a necessary ingredient to whatever Runecoin and the RSIC team has planned?
My answer is yes and no. It depends on which product or which service or application you're talking about. I think that some of the stuff that they might want to do, OP-CAT could be a precursor that's necessary, a prerequisite. But some of the other stuff, it might not. So I do believe, I agree with the market bank. They're going to do something like that when OP-CAT is live. But you think that they can just sit around for the next 6 months to a year and wait for that to happen before they give any sort of news? Absolutely not. So they've got to be working on something else right now that is independent of OP-CAT. And the question becomes, what could that be in the space, given the tools that are available right now? And there's a few options. We could speculate. They've got the meme checked off, but application layer, ecosystem token. How might they infuse that right now without OP-CAT? And back to Disco's point about the length of time to program some of this stuff. I mean, I have my guesses as far as how long it might have taken them to build season 1 and the drop and everything that went into it. I would say maybe around 4 months, because Casey didn't announce runes until September, and it was about 4 months later. Not to say Casey is involved, but he presented the idea and some of the stuff. It was like 32 lines of code. So as soon as that blog post was live, or that bit of code was live, then programmers could come in and say, okay, this is what I can do, so let me start building this. So you have a maximum of about 4 months, I think, for season 1. But that doesn't mean that season 2 is going to be the same build and have the same length. It seems like it's going to be much more intricate, right? So it could take much more amount of time. But they may have started earlier. So if you just were to assume, say, 5 months from design phase to shipping, and maybe they started just before the halving, maybe a month before, you're still talking about March. 5 months to March puts us right here. And now they're beginning to get active again. So in my opinion, I think that they figured out what it is they're going to do without OP-CAT and what they're going to work on when they get OP-CAT. And they're getting closer to the finish line on shipping at least one of them. And that's why we're beginning to see that activity pick up because they've had time to go through the design phase, implement what they need to, prepare. And now maybe it's all done and it's just a waiting game for the market to get a little bit better, for some shift in macro sentiment to change, or a Fed rate cut. Who knows what they're waiting on, or it's not quite finished yet. But they're very close, and that's what I believe. I think that they're nearing the finish line, and we will have some news on season 2, maybe some stuff on rarity in the coming weeks. Don't hold me to it. I'm just a guy. I don't know. I don't have no special alpha or insights.
Yeah.
These are just guesses, educated guesses.
But your instinct is probably good, because you and I and Damon worked with them on the pooling token, right? And just pulling off the whole pooling thing. And they were awesome to work with there. And, we both know that they basically indicated interest early with us. They're like, sounds great. We just have to figure out if we have enough time. I think they had to do a whole bunch of re-indexing because I think Casey changed some code. So Runedev went silent on us for 4 or 5 weeks, which doesn't sound like a lot, but from January to April, like you only have 12, 13 weeks there, right? So he went quiet, but once he came up for breath, clearly they had completed what they needed to complete to feel good about the launch and everything. And then they were quite communicative with us. And this kind of feels like the same thing. The fact that they're having fun, they're shit posting, they're writing different things, they're kind of sharing in a fun way their philosophy and expounding upon that and what's possible. It seems like the heavy lifting of coding is done, and now it's time to have people speculate, have fun, kind of rally all of us who have been, I know you get folks like you and B-Ways who are just like, they're, it's raining, it's snowing, it's negative 28 degrees out. They're outside shoveling the RSIC like flag and like they're just going for it. Or as I'm just like, yeah, I'm focused on stuff. I'm not selling anything, but I'm not posting in the timeline every day. So kudos to all you guys who just like, no matter what the weather is outside, just go for it. Whereas I'm like, it's time to take a little break and put my brain somewhere else. But I'm here. I'm not selling. I love it. I'll be back. So it's exciting to see them come up for air, and there's a lot that's happened there. So I guess, do you want to comment, you or Disco, on any of that? Because next I'm going to follow up on this auction, what we think this means.
No, I want to hear about the auction. I want thoughts on that for sure.
Yeah, right. I think you summarized it well.
All right, cool. So Scribe, tell us what happened last week. There was a lot of events that took place. Obviously, Runecoin and Runedev have come out of the cellar, out of the coding cellar, and they're ready to talk. But there was an auction last week. Kind of walk people through what happened.
Was it an auction? I don't know if it was an auction. They were just saying,
yeah, that's not a good word for it.
Let's see if
you're right.
Okay. Yeah, they just, they tweeted, let's see if Runecoin can work in the real world, which is, intriguing phrasing. But they said, offer us whatever thing you have, a digital good, and some amount of Runecoin, and maybe we'll strike a deal. And they proceeded to acquire, I believe it's 8 different assets. It should be 5 blue chip ordinals, 2 testnet blue chip ordinals, and an ASIC miner, which are all very valuable items. I think it was 30 million Runecoin. I'm not sure what the total cost of all of that is.
It was 30 million Runecoin. Yeah. I gotta refresh.
Yeah. So 30 million Runecoin. I mean, you can see that this is being used as a real world asset to a degree, right? It works in the wild, as they had posted. Now the question becomes, are they going to try to automate that in any kind of way? The ability to buy a thing with Runecoin or to sell a thing for Runecoin. Magic Eden right now, if you want to buy an ordinal or runes, the only way to do so is by spending the sats that you have in multiple UTXOs.
Right.
What if you could spend a small UTXO that had X amount of runes in it? That becomes very intriguing because the Bitcoin fee is way less, but the rune balance could be much higher.
Wait, this is real. Before we go on, this is really interesting. So this is almost like the comparison to ETH and other things. It's like we get to have our cake and eat it too here. It's an L1, but because it's such a clean, simple, light, if you will, UTXO transaction, it actually is an L1, and it doesn't necessarily have to be denominated in Bitcoin.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like that's the huge potential here. Like when you're on L1, when you're buying a thing, it just comes down to the sats, right? How many sats are in that UTXO? And if you want to have a puppet, it's something like 1 million sats right now, right? 0.0 or 0.1, it's like 10 million sats. I don't know what the price is. I haven't checked. So 10 million sats, however many UTXOs are in your wallet that have that full balance, you have to send that. Now, what if you could change that and say, I don't care how many sats are in the wallet or are in the UTXO. Obviously, it needs to be enough to cover network fees, $2 or $3. But what I care about is the amount of runes held in that UTXO. And that is like a side chain that's on L1, in my opinion. If they can build some sort of a network, or they've got the network, if they can build some sort of an application that can read and track that and facilitate the trade based off of a rune balance, then we have like this whole secondary way to transact on Bitcoin with runes, which again points back to the speculation about it becoming a very, very high market cap and in demand thing. Because I don't care so much about the sats. I want to protect my sats. I mean, honestly, you and I have talked about it in the past. If Bitcoin pumps to $1 million, how many sats is that OMB or that puppet or that node monk going to be worth? Much less, right? So protect your sats. And if we have crazy high fees that are sustained like the halving block because of all this other stuff happening, global adoption, how much is going to have to be parsed out to pay sat fees in addition to a sat price? Now, introduce this new layer, not a layer 2, but this new layer is the only word I can think of. This new ability to pay for a thing based off what's in the UTXO aside from the sat value, the number of sats. You could think about it differently and say, I don't care about anything other than the type of sat. I can create this e-commerce marketplace based off of all palindrome sats. You can only spend palindrome sats or pizza sats or whatever the case might be. Obviously, that doesn't really work. But with runes, it's different because you can have any amount of balance in a single UTXO. It might have 500 sats, 1,000 sats, but you've got 10 million Runecoin. So that's where it gets very intriguing to me. If they can automate this in any kind of way, then it's fascinating, man.
Yeah, this is absolutely fascinating. So while you've been talking, I've been scrolling through just some of the things. I'm a huge fan of ordinal loops, and I stupidly, in the early days, in the first set, there's only like 6 of them. I lost out. I saw the person they had it at 4 Bitcoin, then 3, and I'm like, if it's at 2, I'll buy it. And I woke up, it was at 2, and Brissy grabbed it. I was like, but Lou offered the ordinal chapter 2, and these are, in my opinion, just as cool, these ordinal loops. But there's so many up there. One of my favorite is we met him, Scribe, I don't know if you remember, RG Sayre. He was the one at the Liquidium party, the kind of tall guy, but super nice guy. He said, I'll give you a screenshot for 69 RSIC for businessman.eth blocked you. And I responded to him. I'm like, dude, that'd be worth something, except for it's not rare. He's blocked all of us. So you said, I'll give you an inscription boost for 20,000 Runecoin. There's so many good ones, but this one did go through. Shill, how do you even pronounce that? She'll what?
She'll beat Runestein, I think. That's how I pronounce it.
She'll beat Runestein. What a great name. And again, Boomer, I'm like, Shilbert Wrinkles. So I was actually, because I have notifications on for Runecoin. I was crafting mine, and I was going to sell my CryptoPunk too. Which mine actually sold on CryptoPunks this morning. I don't know if you saw the show, but there was a little bit of a boost, and I sold it for 35 ETH. Took a massive L, but you know what? I'm kind of happy I'm out and I've got liquidity. But Shillbot Runestein offered 15 million for this, which I was at 32 million because I wanted to get in the whale club. I'm like, how many do I need to the whale club? So I was more like, screw it. Because, Runecoin was high that week, obviously from all the news and stuff from Runedev and Runecoin coming back online. So I was looking at prices when things were dead because I'm like, I don't want to get caught flat-footed here. But this CryptoPunk did go for 15 million Runecoin, probably a good deal on both sides. I was just too much of a chicken to kind of do the value, so I doubled mine. I'm like, I'm not taking a gamble here, but good for Shilbert Roselstein for doing this. That's one of the 30 million. What else was up there? I offered my under sub 500 Peepo once I saw that the CryptoPunk was already taken for 8, which is probably over the price of what that's worth right now. But this one is one of the more rare ones in that little I always mispronounce this and they make fun of me, little Peppo set, but I did not get accepted. But what they did accept was a Bored Ape, a CryptoPunk, so that's from the ETH side. And then what else did they accept? Here they are.
Node Monkey, Puppet, OMB.
a node monk, and a real RSIC miner, right? So they kind of staggered all sides. I guess my question to you is like, why? Oh, that Bored Ape. What are Bored Apes going for right now? Anyone know? Is it like, are they at like 12? They're not much, right?
I'm not sure.
No, I don't think they're much. Yeah. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. But so they grabbed these evergreen, certainly the node monks and the OMB evergreen on the OMB side and or on the ordinal side, and the CryptoPunk and the ape, and then a real RSIC miner, which I loved. Why do you think they did this? Because I mean, I thought, because Xverse that same night had some announcement that there was some swapping mechanism, so people speculated that it was them. But I think another, I don't know if it was Fractals, but another announcement came out. People are like, oh shit, are they partnering with them to test this thing out? But it turned out it was more just like almost a manual dry run, if you will, maybe for what's to come, like, or just to show the value of Runecoin. Like, what's the significance to you of this?
Yeah, I think both. I think you're talking about a dot swap. I think that was the announcement that came out at the same time.
It was dot swap.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I agree. I think this is kind of like a dry run. As the tweet said, let's see if Runecoin works in the real world. Will people give me a thing to get more Runecoin? And they proved it. When you're looking at designing something, that's what you want to see. You want to see some sort of traction. They've proven that they have traction in this project, or at least this vertical of the project. And so now maybe they're proceeding, if they haven't already, to kind of automate it. And if that happens, like we talked about a few minutes ago, I mean, the potential is huge, because it makes Runecoin valuable beyond just speculation, but for utility. It's still speculative. It all boils down to speculation. So does Bitcoin. Everything boils down to speculation. But there's demand, real demand. If people want it and they're willing to give me a thing for more of it, then I have something of value. Now, how can I implement that thing of value in currency? How can I make this currency in more markets? And so I think that's what they're looking to do. Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. They said, verbatim, Runecoin could be the number 2 cryptocurrency. That doesn't necessarily imply that it's going to be like a utility token, but a currency used for trading and buying and selling goods, which is, again, very, very fascinating.
Yeah.
And in this particular case, they said that they're going to give these away, some sort of a giveaway. Some community members have suggested an auction. I disagree with that take. I think you don't want to have anybody have to put skin in the game, put it there to separate them from their stats. Just if they're holding X amount, or they boosted, or they're playing season 2 or whatever else, somehow they're proven to be involved in the community. They're candidates, and they could potentially win these things, and that would be great. Now, if it was me and I won any of those things, I would probably sell it for more Runecoin, just because if this is the case, I can never have enough. But I don't know. It might be cool to hold on to it just for the momentous occasion that it is. Like, I got my Bitcoin sneakers from the race. You see the trophy here. I got the sneakers. I'm not wearing those sneakers. I'm going to put them on the wall. So if I got that, one of those, a CryptoPunk or a Bored Ape or the ASIC miner, I probably would keep it, not sell it, just hold on to it, just because who knows, if this thing does really blow up, then maybe 10 years from now, it might be a nice collector's item.
Yeah, it would be cool to, obviously those are on ETH, so you can't really do that. I guess you could teleburn it onto Bitcoin, and then, the Runecoin team could do something cool on like a rare set. I'm just thinking out loud here, but there's cool things you could do, especially maybe the CryptoPunk back at 30, 35 ETH. Maybe, so someone who gets that free would probably want that and to sell it, and then come buy Runecoin or buy an ordinal, or, get in shrooms or get an ordinal punks or OMB or whatever. But there would probably be something cool there that you could do. And certainly on the ordinals, like, I wonder if before they did it, if they could reinscribe on that set, like you said. So there's almost this provenance, this history of it being a part of the special auction if this does take off. My whole take was, they said like, what should we do? How should we handle it? I'm like sell everything, create a kitty. And if we're truly decentralized, like the kitty comes back to RSIC boost holders, at the end of the year. But I got the thing and I wrote it right away without like stream of consciousness, but it's making us think, just like when we got excited at the beginning of this whole adventure with the drop of the R6 and the inscriptions, like this is happening again, like what the possibilities are.
Yeah, I mean, everything, it's all about having fun too. I think active devs that are actively doing something to engage the community, that's great. If you can create a game, a giveaway, you have stuff to be given away. People want stuff for free. That always goes a long way. I'm lagging on my end. I don't know if that's happening on your end.
Yeah, you're lagging a little, but it eventually will, like it glitches and then it'll come back. So it's fine.
Okay.
Like we'll probably go for 10 more minutes tops. Like I guess I would ask you now, is there anything, like, I know we got ya boy who has awesome posts and tweets, like give us some of the best, craziest theories that could be true, or because we've talked about some of that, just what's the last thing we should leave people with, like, and what people maybe should do or what they should talk about, or what the coolest kind of like use cases and theories are? It's pretty broad.
Yeah,
I know.
well,
So I'll give you time to think. Give me the definition of everything.
I think that ultimately, there's a number of different ways you could kind of boil it all down. But in my opinion, helicopter view, right? 30,000 feet up, out of the helicopter, you're in a full 757, looking at everything.
Right.
If you think that runes can succeed, if you're excited about anything being built on Bitcoin layer 1, it's got to be runes. It's not fractal because that's a side chain. It's not any of this other stuff that's a side chain. You want something built on L1 Bitcoin, and that's ordinals and that's runes and BRC20. So what in those three lanes can you identify that gets you excited, and temper that excitement to run it through the gauntlet of all the questions in your mind? Can this, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if the dev dies? All these, just fudge your own bags. I made a comment earlier, fudge your own bags constantly to understand how you can work through your risk management. Am I too exposed? If you're worrying and sweating too much, maybe you need to sell something and take some liquidity out so that you're not worried about it. So find a comfort level. But again, back to the main point, if you can find something within Bitcoin L1 that's being built that you should champion or should rally behind, and it's runes. It's not just ordinals. It's not just BRC20s, but specifically in runes, which rune has the most potential, which rune is best for the larger ecosystem of runes. It's very clearly RSIC and Runecoin. Hands down, there's not a comparison. There are good memes. Billy, that's a great meme. Psycho Hamster, that's a great meme. There's a number of these memes that are good, but that's not going to uplift the entire space. Dog is not going to uplift the entire space. Satoshi Nakamoto, the number one etched rune, is not going to lift up the entire space just because it's got a cool name.
Easy. That's where my bags
I got it. I'm flooding my own bags.
Until I understood memes. And so, no, I totally get, obviously RSIC is my curious, like, utility play. And Billy, like, this was a good education for me in the runes ecosystem, because I didn't buy a ton of stuff beyond Runecoin, but like Billy is one that I'm like, oh, I get it now. Like the glass is like super easy memeability, just across the board, where even a boomer, I'm really a Gen Xer, but we'll call me a boomer for this, could easily put a meme together that could even be fairly clever just with the goggles, and it would probably get retweeted like wildfire, right? Whereas Cats and Sats had that, and it's almost like, you know, Billy just took over. And who knows, maybe one will take over from Billy after this one. And when everything is ready to run, it is even more memeable. But Billy's pretty good on the memeability front. I agree with you.
Totally agree. I think that you got to look at the common denominator, and a meme is only as good as it is as people love it, right? Until the next new shiny meme comes out, and then they like that. Doge, Shiba, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mog and Whiff, dog with hat. There's always a next, and so if you're looking beyond or looking at the broader scope, what has utility or what could be used or what could improve the infrastructure in some way, it's somebody that's building something that requires devs. If you're looking at runes, obviously that's RSIC, and then I think the common denominator, you want to look at like the ceiling, right? Common denominator for all this is 0. Base case is 0. It all goes to 0. Something happens or it's not adopted. Everything is just done. We're all cooked. All our profits are gone. We're bag holders indefinitely. That's the barest case that there is. So what's the bull case? The bull case for a good meme, whether it's Dog or Billy, in my opinion, $1 billion market cap or more, that's going to attract more liquidity. It's going to attract more eyes. It's great for all the runes because it's going to bring awareness. But it doesn't improve infrastructure, and it doesn't expand. It doesn't give runes expressivity or programmability or leverage any of the tech. Is just a good meme that people can identify with. So base case is 0 for all of these. Bullish case for the memes, couple $1 billion market cap, awareness, liquidity. Bullish case for RSIC, all of that plus the ability to expand upon it and not have those people jump to the next new hot one.
Right.
Unless, somebody else comes out with another meta protocol that mirrors what they do, which probably would happen, but then you still have the provenance and the history and the first mover advantage.
Is that what FSIC is? Is that one of Petty's projects? That whole, is that just a total copy pasta?
I don't know who's behind it, but I'm not feeling it. I think the fractal in and of itself, I haven't done the deep dive yet. I see some people I respect talking about it, and I see a lot of people I respect talking bad about it, talking good and talking bad. But for me, what I'm hearing and understanding is that you have to give up custody of your Bitcoin. It's some sort of a bridge side chain. That's number one. That's
strike 3.
Strike 3. And then the foul ball on top of that is that they're copy pasting Runecoin so bad. FSIC, that's unabashed copying, and then the color scheme, black and white. They could have called it just FRAC. FSIC stands for Fractal Specific Inscription Circuit, I think, like Rune Specific Inscription Circuit for RSIC. You could have just called it FRAC and made up the R and the A. Fractal Rune Application Circuit. Change it. Be some sort of original. So the lack of originality and effort there, on top of having to custody or give up custody of my sats, that's a no for me.
That's what Runex did at the beginning. They're like, hey, just send this wallet address Bitcoin. I'm like, oh, hey, no, F off. And I was so curious about the whole runes thing, and I wanted to experiment. And as Disc and I always say, sometimes you lose money experimenting. Like when I minted a bunch of stuff on at the halving night, and then I'm like, I got so many, and they're like, and that was the last block, right? I'm like, yeah, but I got them. They're like, check again. And I lost. I got front ran 7 times for, I think it was uncommon goods. It wasn't. That's number one. It was
Satoshi Nakamoto.
It was that one, but there was one other I was buying that night. It was okay, whatever. To finish off, because I forgot to ask, I think what we did really well in our spaces was giving people, remember how we'd show them, give them actionable steps. Here's where we are. Remember to move your RSIC. I know we don't know much right now, but Dave asked a great question. He's curious what you guys think about this year's, the last sentence about season 2. The rune itself will be as permanent, as immutable as Bitcoin itself, needing nothing to flourish and knowing nothing of seasons. So I never moved my miners out of my original wallet. That wallet is actually I don't want to say it's dead, but it's just got the RSIC miners. I never moved it, never moved the boosting token or the pooling token or anything like that. What advice for season 2 can we give? That's Rune 21, I believe, right? Do we know anything about that, or at least advice to give people, or just hold tight?
Yeah, that's so tough. I mean, I've been wrestling with this myself a little bit because I've got all of my miners in like four different wallets. Um, and on one hand, maybe I want to change out those wallets. You know, I've had them for a while. I want to just cycle to a new address, a new seed phrase. So it's like to disrupt how participate or disrupt my participation in season two because I
Right.
moved them. Now I stop accruing. Does that change my lottery tickets effectively? Is there a lottery system? And so we don't know. And then I guess kind of in line with that is as far as safety goes. If you listed something in the past, let's say you had an RSIC and you listed it at like 0.03 when it was down bad, it went up to zero point 0.1 or 0.14 or 5 at the height. But let's say you had it listed here and then it does have a moonshot and then it goes up here. If your PSBT is still signed, then somebody can go in and make a claim and buy your RSIC for $1,000 when the price going in the market is $10,000. So in order to prevent that, you have to do a self transfer to cancel out that first
Right.
PSBT. I would like to do that too because I did list a couple of them that I bought way back in the day. If we have a price up, a price run, I could get screwed. So I really want to do a self transfer, but I don't know if I should because there's no specs on season two, and if that might jeopardize any of my chances for winning the game effectively. So I don't know. I think just sit tight. If you practice good OPSEC, you're secure with your seed phrases. You're not copying. You're not clicking links. Then just sit tight, hold. I don't think if you've come this far since April, you can wait a couple more weeks. If we get to the end of September and we still don't have any kind of news, then I might forego any sort of lottery winnings just to preserve what I have, just out of abundance of caution. Otherwise, I'm sitting on my thumbs,
Right.
twiddling them at times, just checking the posts, getting excited every time I read some of the posts that they come out with, or talk to people in the community. I get a new idea and I start to wonder about this and this. But also, you want to temper those expectations because I'm sure all of us have round tripped the bag because we were super excited about the potential, and none of it ever came to fruition. So, just like Runecoin has said in the past, their disclaimer: this is an experiment. The base case is zero. Bull case is way up here, just astronomical. But let's be realistic. Don't over leverage yourself. Manage your risk, and if you're comfortable, keep up with the content that they're putting out to maintain that level of conviction, or harden and catalyze and strengthen that level of conviction, and then just wait. If not, why not leave, or why leave if you've been here this long? Why leave now? Um, Especially if you got it for free. You and me are the same. I'm not sure about Disco, but we bought miners, a good amount of them, and Runecoin maybe. We didn't get a ton dropped for free. So we have exposure more so than some other people that are in my comments saying, I got it for free,
Right.
I'll hold it to zero for whatever. So just manage your risk. And if you're comfortable and confident in the team, hold your convictions, give it a few more weeks, a month, and we'll revisit then.
Absolutely. Disco, do you have any other questions before we take it home?
No, but I could have kind of predicted that during or after this conversation that I'd be waddling over and looking at purchasing a little bit more. So that's kind of my top priority. It's like we talk about stacking sats on the kind of the weekly show, but now it's kind of like stacking runes and looking at it. Just as you look at the dips on the other side, look at it as an opportunity. It's like if you have any, if you look at the potential of what was covered in this conversation, like how could you not, get tickled and start thinking about, trying to get some more? Because when you Scribe, when you put it on the level of, and when they did the tweet, when it was like Ethereum and ETH and, runes and then Runecoin, it's like, when you start looking at it from that lens and that perspective, it's like, let's go, let's giddy up and let's check it out. So
Yeah.
I always appreciate touching base with you and answering questions and just kind of getting that perspective of, guys, buckle up, have a little patience and look at where this thing could actually head. It's not just, this meme or this or that. It's a potentially, an amalgamation of everything. And, that's what you get into this space for, is to find those sort of things to get passionate about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, none of
100%.
this, guys, is financial advice at all. So invest, degen wisely. But again, none of the things said on the show is even remotely financial advice, but we do try and give you our honest opinions and what we do and where we're going. And the reason we're such good friends and so close to Scribe is because he is the same way. So we wish everyone the best. Scribe, thank you so much for coming on the show. Every time you and I talk, I learn like 36 new things and I get better perspective. So we appreciate you and have a great day.
You.
Take care, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for having me, fellas.
Thanks, guy.